So this is the Hyperlight mouse by Hitscan, a pretty new brand that kind of popped out of nowhere. For our first release from a new brand, the Hyperlight is all around pretty impressive, but something that just doesn't click with me. The shape of this mouse is something I thought I was really going to enjoy just by looking at renders and the dimensions online, but in person, it's one of the first few mice to actually give me some kind of pain and discomfort when using it. Even when this mouse is catered towards small to medium hands, and myself, I do have small hands, and I just couldn't click with this mouse, unlike some of the larger mice I own. This is a mouse that does take a pretty large inspiration from the Razer Viper Mini, just with the overall size and the hump being almost the same, but not one-to-one. Overall, this is a very low profile mouse, with the hump and front click height setting pretty low to the ground when compared to something like the Superlight. Relatively flat sides with a slight groove around the hump, allowing you to pull the mouse back into your palm. No aggressive curves, so fingertip enjoyers will enjoy this one, as there are a ton of contact points without a groove or curve getting in the way. For a claw grip, the Hyperlight has just the perfect amount of curvature on the sides, allowing you to pull the mouse back into your palm. Main reason I won't be mating this mouse over my XM2AK is just because of how relaxed this mouse feels to me. I mostly use an aggressive claw grip, and this mouse with its very acute and smooth curves just didn't click with me. The relaxed feeling of this mouse really enough made my wrist feel more restricted, causing me some strains after using it for an hour or so. Even when compared to a mouse that's quite similar, and that would be the OP1 8K, the slight change in the hump and the sides make a huge difference that makes the OP1 a bit more comfortable for me. A hump that sits better in my palm and more tapered and aggressive sides when compared to the Hitscan just make it a better fit for me. But if you are someone that uses a relaxed claw or fingertip and has smaller hands, then this mouse is pretty great for that. But for an aggressive claw, it's not something I really recommend, just in my own opinion. The weight of this mouse comes in at around 40 grams, and for a mouse of that weight, the build quality is pretty exceptional. No flexing or creaking is present anywhere on the top shell of this mouse on my unit. Overall, it's just built like a tank. The clicks on this mouse are really solid as well. The Hyperlight is using one of my favorite switches, the Omron Opticals, and the implementation of them feels really good in this mouse. Pretty much no pre-travel with a slight amount of post-travel. There is some wobble present on the main triggers, but not enough to actually feel that in game. The scroll wheel and the side buttons are nice as well. The scroll wheel is pretty light to scroll while still having pretty defined steps, and the middle click is light as well. Side buttons are also in a really great position and have a very snappy and lightweight click to them that feel very spammable. Coating is super nice as well, super grippy, and on the white colorway, fingerprint or grime doesn't really show up. This is one of the few mice that I can recommend not putting grip tape on just because of how good the coating is. The stock skates are as good as it gets when it comes to stock skates, pretty much feeling just like the X-Ray Pad Jade skates, super high quality that feel really great on both glass and cloth. Just overall quality is a 10 out of 10 with no real issues anywhere on this mouse, at least on my unit. As you would expect from a new gaming mouse in 2024, performance is really solid. In terms of the specs, you're pretty much getting the latest and greatest. The sensor is the Pixart 5395 and it is paired with the Nordic 52840, and yes, this mouse can go up to those higher polling rates such as 8000 Hz, but with the purchase of a separate dongle. Everything felt super snappy and responsive, especially with the sensor being slightly positioned forward. I was mostly using this mousepad with a glass pad and had no real issues with spinouts or any weird sensor related issues at all. 8000 Hz felt buttery smooth as well and very comparable to my other 8000 Hz mice. The software is what you would expect from any mouse, except it's not a web driver, which is kind of a shame, especially for a mouse of its class. Pretty simple software that gives you everything you need, like rebinding the keys, setting up DPI stages, and then all of the technical stuff like turning up the polling rate and the LOD, etc. Really, there are only two parts of this mouse that I can count as negatives, but aren't a deal breaker at all. The power switch feels pretty cheap and creaky, and I thought it was broken at first, and then the software not being web-based, which is fine, but when comparing to other brands, it's a bit behind in that regard. Then again, I barely touched the software of this mouse, opened it once to set the settings when I first got it, and I haven't touched it since. But overall, this is a super solid first mouse from a new brand. The price tag of the Hitscan is $90, with the optional purchase of the 8000 Hz dongle coming in at $25. I think the price of this mouse is super fair for what you are getting. Everything about it is pretty exceptional. Even though it doesn't quite work for me, I have to give credit where it's due to Hitscan.